A little girl named Alice lived with her family in the big city. Her life seemed to be wonderful, loving parents, caring friends, and kind neighbors. One evening, however, as Alice climbed into her bed, she heard strange noises in her parents' room. She decided to go into their room to find out what was going on. When she peeked through the door, she saw that her parents had turned into huge monsters with angry eyes and sharp teeth. They noticed her presence and began to approach her. Alice was scared to death, but she suddenly realized that it wasn't just her parents, but all the people around her, including her friends and neighbors, were monsters too. She realized that she had to pretend she didn't know this, or else she would be seen as an outsider and might do something terrible to her. It became very difficult for Alice to communicate with these monsters, and she started avoiding people and spending more time alone. She didn't know how to get rid of this fear and the feeling that all the people around her were actually monsters. Over time, Alice began to see this whole situation as a nightmare, but she couldn't tell anyone about it because she was afraid they wouldn't understand her. She lived in constant fear that the monsters might attack her at any moment. Alice knew she needed help, but she didn't know where to turn. She was left alone with her fears and worries. Her life had become a nightmare, and she didn't know how to get out of this terrifying world of monsters. Soon Alice began to notice that the monsters around her began to behave more and more aggressively. They began to follow her, and sometimes even stalk her. Alice began to spend more and more time at home, locking the doors and windows. One day when she left the house, she noticed that the monsters surrounded her. Baird, her grandfather, who had told her stories of his adventures in her youth. He had always told her to stay cool in any situation and look for a way out of a difficult situation. Then Alice decided to use this advice and tried to address the monsters with words. She told them that they were wrong and that all the people around them were not monsters. But the monsters didn't believe her and continued to approach. At that moment, Alice remembered her favorite doll, which had always soothed her and given her strength. She took it in her hands and closed her eyes, concentrating on her thoughts. When Alice opened her eyes, the monsters were gone. She was on the street, where there was not a single person. She realized it was all just a nightmare, but she could never forget the fear she had felt. From that day on, Alice became more cautious in her dealings with people. She no longer thought that everyone around her could be a monster, but she knew that anyone could be hiding their true selves. This story taught Alice that the most unexpected things can happen in life, but the important thing is to stay strong and believe in yourself. She realized that her love for her doll gave her the strength to face her fears, and she